This is going to be a tough video to do, and I may need to grab some tissues at some point, but I think it's an important story to share, and I think that there is grace in the midst of a lot of sorrow, and we want to tell you about that. Arielle has always been very open about our struggles with infertility, and I'm really proud of her for that. Other people that we probably will never know are going through this, and we hope that maybe they'll see this video and maybe they'll hear this story and maybe just have a little bit of hope and at least not feel like they're all alone in this. So thanks again for tuning in. We are Erik and Arielle, and we're going to talk about our struggle with infertility.
When I was younger, I was probably about 14 or 15 years old when I was experiencing a bunch of abdominal pain around where my uterus and ovaries are. We ended up having to go to the doctors, and I got an ultrasound which basically showed that I had a bunch of cysts on my ovaries. I was then told by the doctor that it would be nearly impossible for me to have babies in the first place, so I never really had high expectations of actually being able to get pregnant. So at that time, I figured that I was pretty much just infertile. But when I got older, I still had a little bit of hope in the back of my mind that I would maybe be able to have kids someday. Fast forwarding to when I was 20 years old, I had been having a bunch of health issues for the last 3 years, and I didn't really know what was going on. I'm not going to get too much into it, but basically I was diagnosed with a condition called EDS, or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. EDS is a disorder that affects the collagen in your body. So basically I'm very flexible, but that flexibility also turns into something bad when I'm too flexible and my shoulders will pop out or my hips will pop out. EDS affects a lot more than just my shoulders and hips popping out, but I won't get into everything that it has caused for me. However, one of my side effects is that progesterone and estrogen make my EDS get really bad. And I could not take birth control without my EDS getting a lot worse and just feeling terrible in general. Both of those hormones increase a lot during pregnancy, and if I were to get pregnant, my body would be really susceptible to all of my joints kind of getting all loose really quickly. I would definitely be putting myself through a lot if or when we ever did get pregnant. A few months before we actually got married, I decided to talk with Erik about going to fertility doctors and asking them about our chances of actually having kids and if it was a good and safe idea. The first doctor that we went to kind of just shut it down altogether. She said that it really wouldn't be a good idea. The baby probably wouldn't survive past the first trimester, and that we should automatically start looking into other options like surrogacy or adoption. The second doctor that we went to told us that I was able to get pregnant and that I would have a bunch of health problems during it, and that the baby would have a lot of health problems during it too, and that there was a good possibility that I wouldn't be able to carry the baby to term. And this one really scared me because it was a little bit of hope, but along the line of hope, there was, well, if you do this, you could be hurting your baby. The last doctor that we went to did tell us that we could get pregnant. She said that I would be okay, I just need to be more careful, and that I could definitely carry the baby to term. And I would just need to be on more restrictions than most pregnant women. But at that time, I was just willing to do anything to be able to just have a baby of my own.
Shortly after we got married, we had our first miscarriage, and we named that baby Alex. It was really difficult for me to cope, and it was definitely even more difficult just seeing Arielle grieve and not knowing how to help her or really even comfort her. I didn't even have a clue how to be a husband yet, much less how to deal with losing a child. Even when Arielle was pregnant with our son Greyson, it was difficult for me to connect while he was in the womb. And so when we lost Alex, I didn't really feel sadness as much as kind of just numb and confused. And yet I saw how sad Arielle was, and it just made me feel really helpless. I had never heard anyone really talk openly about miscarrying, and so I definitely didn't think it was terribly common. We both thought that it was hopefully just a one-time thing and it didn't mean anything bad in the future, but we had a lot more heartbreak in store. We definitely didn't realize just how difficult Arielle's condition would make it for her to have a healthy pregnancy. In 2018, we had our son Greyson, who is now 2.5 years old. We always looked at him as our miracle, but we didn't quite realize just how much of a miracle he was. He is a scientifically objective miracle because the chances of him being born, we now realize, are incredibly low. But he was a pretty healthy pregnancy. It was very difficult on Arielle's body, as we knew it would be, but it was just about as smooth as we could have hoped for, and she almost carried him full term. He was barely within the realm of premature, but he was born a healthy baby. So Arielle will talk about some of the other rough patches that we've had, but I just want to stress how thankful we are that God gave us Greyson and we were able to have one biological child.
The first miscarriage that I had after Greyson, we were both pretty devastated by that one. I had found out a couple weeks before Christmas of 2019, and I was trying to be all secretive and tell Erik in a really fun way. So I ended up making this huge paper box that had all these folds and different little like compartments, and it was basically a box and a box and a box and a box. On all those little edges, I put photos of us, of our life together up to this point. In the last box, the smallest box, I ended up putting the pregnancy test with a picture of Greyson crying at the bottom, and I actually filmed Erik's reaction. We were both really excited. A few weeks later, I ended up having a miscarriage and had to tell Erik and Erik's parents and my parents that we were no longer pregnant. And altogether, I have had a total of 6 miscarriages. Each time I got pregnant, I had so much hope in the beginning, and I was really excited, even though I tried to not show my excitement to Erik so much. But every time I would start to bleed, I'd have a miscarriage, and then I would lose a bunch of my hope. So we decided to get some fertility help. I was put on medication to help us get pregnant. I had a miscarriage after this medication, and after a few months of being on it, we decided to try an IUI. Both of us weren't really confident in the IUI. We both really felt like it wasn't going to work anyway, mostly because I basically had a hostile uterus that liked to tell me that I'm pregnant and then kick the baby out of his home. And right after the procedure, we ended up having a negative pregnancy test, and that's when we decided to stop fertility treatment. Erik and I weren't really hopeful about the IUI treatment in the first place. I have read a bunch of studies that say that it didn't help that much, but that was the next step for us to take. We had spent a lot of money on fertility treatments, and we were really just tired and worn out and giving up hope to even have another baby. We both thought that it would be best for us to stop trying because I don't think I could handle another miscarriage.
Arielle and I had talked about adopting or fostering even before we were married, just as a dream of ours. We didn't think that we would be looking into it so soon, but the time seemed right when we started. Greyson at that time would be turning 2 soon, and we didn't want there to be a huge gap in between the siblings. And so that was when we decided it's time to start looking into adoption. We looked into possibly fostering to adopt, although that usually meant getting an older child, and we felt uncomfortable about having someone older than Greyson in the household. So we decided to look into adopting someone younger than him. We didn't care about race, location, gender, although I really hoped for a girl. We just prayed and hoped for 2 things, and that was a quick adoption and not to let our hopes get up again and then get crushed. We're going to talk about our adoption journey in a different video, but we were able to successfully adopt our new daughter Kora officially in February of this year, and it's been an absolute blessing to us, and we're just overjoyed.
That's my baby.
So thanks for listening to our story. If you guys have any questions for us, I mean, Arielle's definitely very open about it, and I'm getting to be a little bit more open as time goes on. But, you know, we really just want to help people not feel alone in this. And so if you're just curious about anything we did to help cope, grieve, talk to anybody, anything like that, reach out to us and we'll be happy to talk to you. So subscribe. We have some more lighthearted videos coming up soon. And thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.